a lot of us that are coming here professionally from other sectors, we're like, oh, this should be built, this should be built. Oh, like, why isn't this here? You know, a lot of legacy folks, they have their entire systems built. They're very effective, they're very efficient, they're very low cost. Like, I think that there's a lot of learning that can go both ways here, you know? Instead of forcing one community to snap into the grid of another, like... Right. We have an opportunity space here to work together.
Hey, yo, we put free money where the mic is. He got it on lock like Rikers. Green rebates get you paid, so a lot of people like us. Money Talks Podcast, watch it on all your devices. Woo!
Welcome back to the Money Talks Podcast. I am here with Angelique from Bloom. How are you doing
good morning.
Day 2
Thank you.
of CannaCon? How does day 2 compare to day 1?
Well, I think day 2 for any of us in cannabis at a convention like this is like I say, my wagon is sagging, but like my heart is still happy because this industry attracts a lot of beautiful humans trying to build stuff here and contribute. So
totally.
Yeah.
And you're one of them. So
thank you.
Tell me how your journey in cannabis began.
So this is not unlike a lot of us here. I think that there's probably medical reasons for a lot of us that start to face the plant like with intention and not just recreation, right, and fun. So I had a little breast cancer monitoring oopsie, and that's when I started, and that coincided with Illinois opening up legal rec. That was 2020, and all free and clear here, biopsy negative. But that was when I started to use the plant with that intention of like, hey, I'm trying to handle stress, handle something really huge in my life, right? Like using it with a level of like modality that I don't think that others that just have preconceived notions about the plant would, right? So that was like an enormous mind shift set for me. And you know, like I come from a big family, we're all plant consumers, you know, and not just facing cannabis, but like for other solutions too, for our health and wellness. So like I thought, well, this is a natural dovetail, and like why doesn't anyone really frame it that way? You know, we have beautiful cannabis culture. Those are my people. I think that legacy really needs celebration here, and also like explanation to the general public that's not facing the plant yet about like what important role they've played in carrying genetics forward, so that we have an open and legal adult rec marketplace here and medical to tap into, right? Like if they hadn't been doing this behind the scenes hustle for the last 100 years, we wouldn't have all these choices right now.
Yeah,
right?
True.
Yeah.
We need to respect the elders and just respect the pioneers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it starts with the growers, right?
It starts with the growers and the cultivators and those who have held the genetics. And so, like, how do I take that story and frame it for, like, my mom or my friends from high school who don't actually use the plant with intention like that, you know? They're in their middle age, with kids in college, you know, still turning to alcohol for solutions of, like, de-escalation for nonsense in their world, or also, like, fun and enjoyment, right? Where a lot of us have now turned to the plant for those reasons. And honestly, you know, we wake up feeling a hell of a lot better the next morning, don't we?
Yeah. So tell me about your professional background.
So I am a writer and researcher by trade. My husband and I have owned and operated a product design and development company for the last 17 years called Sinter Group. And so I've been doing a lot of behind the scenes writing, you know, non-authorship we'll call it, right? A lot of corporate stuff.
Got it.
My first job was in a newsroom though, so journalism and storytelling is at kind of my core. Yeah, I wanted to work for National Geographic right out of college.
Dude, I mean, that's a great place to work for.
So you know, thinking about international perspectives, other cultures, and that beautiful like nexus between like visual storytelling and words, because we have a lot of differentiated learner styles, right? So like some people learn through words, some people learn through pictures, and honestly, some people learn through like tactile sense. You know, when I came onto this team, this was not my inception, this was not my idea. My co-founder, Lynn Walkler, she's a board-certified nurse practitioner and a cannabis-trained clinician, and she's based here in the Twin Cities. And this was her idea, saying there's an enormous void in education here. As a lot of these new states are rolling out, she's like, all I'm doing is telling the same thing over and over again to my patients, and I'm giving care and guidance around cannabis use. And so she said, I think that we have an opportunity here to like do this on a wider scale. And so she asked me to come build the ship and do it in print. And so we've been like working on this for the past year. We haven't even been in business a year yet, but we've already won a national award. We just won Green State's Consumer Choice Award, national. We were the top book and periodical choice. And I'm like almost embarrassed to say that Rochelle Gordon said that we beat out Ed Rosenthal. And I'm like, I had to hide my face behind the magazine the other night at our drop party at Earl Giles here in the town, because I'm like, he's a legend, and we're brand new. We're a baby here. But I think that feedback loop is telling me that this is needed. And in order to reach new consumers, especially in a new marketplace, we maybe need to frame the story a little different because they're not part of the culture yet. But we can help softly feed that to them and see if they want to be part of it, right?
And, it's interesting you said people would be surprised at like the lack of education and like the lack of knowledge that is being spread. Can you elaborate on that a little? Like what areas are people's education lacking?
I mean, maybe from some of our oversimplified terminology between like indica and sativa to like what people should use and when, dosing, like the route of administration or like the product format that people are choosing for what reason, like how quick is the onset, how long is the duration. These are like a lot of things that we figured out by trial and error, or as my kids would say, like F around and find out, right? But like if you're 80 years old and you're trying to get a remedy for sleep, you can't do that. That's dangerous, to take a gummy that's 100 milligrams versus 5 or 10 that first time, right? So there's just some gentle nuances here. And, for some of us that come from more mature marketplaces, we're thinking like, well, this is like old hat. This is old news. Like, we don't need to repeat this. Well, we kind of do because no one here in Minnesota is tapping into that database of knowledge. And our approach, doing this in print, which is kind of like a very guerrilla marketing 90s style, right? This is a free circular. It's quarterly. Like we have signed up with a circulation partner here, for a very hyper-local approach because of the population density in Minnesota that's primarily in the Twin Cities, right? So we're over in like 180 locations, but we're free and we're right at the door. So like when people are coming in out of the library, when people are coming in out of the grocery store, the food co-op, the yoga studio, the coffee shop, right?
Yeah.
Like that's where we want to be because this is the normalization conversation that I want to participate in.
Right.
Right.
And what would a lot of people be surprised to find out about, like, just the consumers of Minnesota? Like, let's backtrack because as someone who, for a long time was just a novice cannabis user, indica and sativa were the only two scientific words I knew. And it seems like oversimplification was a big issue because there's so much more to the plant than just binary 1 and 0, indica, sativa, or a hybrid. So how hard is it? Because like it feels like your job is to find a way to still keep it simple but also like explain the nuances. So how hard is that to tell that story to someone who doesn't want to be intimidated by too much knowledge,
Thank you for that. Yeah, that is the quiet puzzling that I'm doing by myself a lot. It's, I like to bring in like a literary reference. It's like taking something as massive and as dense as like War and Peace and then like turning it into a haiku poem where someone's like, oh, I got that. There's just a couple lines there, a couple of key points, right? So it's really about wearing a good editor's hat, but also partnering with the right subject matter experts in the first place where we can really synthesize and put things together into like 101 or 201 curriculum formats. But put it at a reader's level. I mean, most of our general public has like an 8th grade education reader's level. So it's being mindful of that too, right? Like not making it too complex and heady and not making it too pedestrian. But I think really how we do that is first person narratives and storytelling because how many people are here that have an amazing story, right? And I say to a lot of folks who are trying to build out their advertising and marketing, like, I don't want to hear about your CPG product blown out into marketing terms, differentiated from your neighbor to your left or to the right. I want to know about you as a human. Why are you here? Why are you hustling and grinding and trying to build something from ground zero to contribute to this sector? Customers will care about that, and that's how you get loyalty, and that's a snowball effect because they tell their friends.
Yeah. So what are some of you've heard a lot of interesting stories then as someone who runs a magazine.
Yeah.
Was there one story in particular that really jumped out to you?
I mean, they're all pretty amazing, like major transformation things. And we're talking about life or death kind of stuff, right? Like literally, like I had to put a suicide warning, sensitive information in our last issue, our spring issue, because, we're talking about BIPOC owners, we're talking about veterans, we're talking about women-owned, we're talking about a lot of folks who just haven't had doors open for them before. So to think that they're trying to build something, even in this industry, where all of us have the same hurdles, right, and the same financial burdens, lack of access to capital, ridiculous state of 280E, and all that stuff that still needs to stay still needs to change at a federal level, right? But I don't know. I probably could call out my friend Kenneth, who I just met, who is in this edition here. He was incarcerated, and he has had a complete transformation of his whole world. He's a successful business owner, and now he's building a vertical here as a micro license, and he's helping self-organize other micro licensees as well, because as we know, it's hard to wear all the hats and do all the things. And the beautiful thing about this state is that they're giving a lot of low access levels for license, but that also means that you need to know how to do all those things, right? So pooling people together and thinking about community, cooperative, collaborative, collective builds, I think that's going to be a really beautiful example of what the state is doing differently in the industry.
Yeah.
Working together instead of working against.
And as a storyteller, almost a professional storyteller, what, say you're talking to a brand and they're like, I have a really good product, but I don't know what my story is. Or what if they say, I don't think I have an interesting enough story. I'm just a guy who loves cannabis. How would you respond to that? Because I always say, everyone does have an interesting story. You just have to dig a little deeper, But
Yeah.
how would you respond to someone who says, I just don't know what my story is besides the fact that I love the plant and I want to make money?
I would say I don't believe you, and I think we'd have to have a long conversation because I'm a really good listener and people tell me their secrets. So I think that we'd find that kernel and that seed of that story in there somewhere, because I think it's really hard for us as individuals to recognize that sometimes. But when we can communicate to someone else, often I'll get a draft from someone and because I'm doing a lot of writing coaching too, because these are not professional writers, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll get a draft and I'll be like, okay, your aha is about 75% of the way into what you sent me. That's where we start.
Wow.
That's the story starter. That's the essence of you, right?
Yeah.
And that's hard because a lot of marketing is pretty slick and constructed and not always honest,
God,
right?
Yeah.
So I think that this industry is begging and calling for authenticity in 2025. And
Right.
I think that that's how we're going to widen the TAM and get new and novice consumers here.
Yeah.
And maybe with a little bit of a branding change too, right? I've been saying to everybody here the past day and a half, I might not look like your typical stoner, but I am. But I also realize that if I choose to dress myself in fan leaves and tie-dye, I can't even have a conversation with a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit about optics, too, that we have to do here when we're throwing something like this out into the general public. Because not that I'm trying to dupe a readership, but, I at least want you to pick this up and figure out if this is a solution for you, because if it might be, then those dollars are going to come here, and that's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts with getting more people. It's as simple as getting more people in Minnesota to use cannabis and to find the benefits of cannabis.
Right.
And it's people like you, kind of on the ground floor, making that happen. Do you feel like you have a lot of responsibility, with this magazine, and as someone who is touching consumers on a daily basis?
I do. And I hold that in high regard and respect, and I'm going to try and do my damnedest of an honorable job. I've been here in the industry. I'm based in Chicago, and our state's a lot harder, and I really want to see some of these small licensees have success, and they need support. And that storytelling aspect is something that is easy for me to curate, oddly enough.
Yeah.
And so I want to hear stories, and I want to see how I can weave them together so that the general public will pay attention, But yeah, it does feel like a little bit of weight, but I'm built for that. I'm good. Yeah.
So let's talk about let's dive deeper into your story, because I also have a broadcasting degree. I thought I was going to be a sports reporter. And I just love that when you kind of study journalism reporting, how much those skills are translatable to other industries. It's like you said, it's finding the nuggets, knowing the good nuggets, even doing a podcast
Yep.
and editing little clips. That's journalism and reporting.
Oh, yeah.
It's finding the nuggets that people will respond well to. So, but your story, how did journalism? I don't know where I'm going with this, but
Yeah.
I just want where was a moment in your life where you kind of had that big shift, or what was your biggest aha moment, maybe in your professional career?
Well, I'll tell you that I was the first girl in my family to get a college degree. And I played soccer first in college, so I was a D1 athlete. And so I was doing all the things that I thought I needed to do to hustle and grind. And I ended up getting hurt, and I transferred to University of Michigan to finish my degree. But in the process of that, they were shuttering their journalism program.
Wow.
So like I had to figure out mid-undergrad, like, okay, how do I still do this, but do it through like a new lens and like with maybe a little broader skill set. And I added sociology and American culture and English and communications to that skill set too, because I thought, you know what, like the essence of storytelling is really being able to have good listening skills, good observation skills, good synthesis skills, good critical analysis skills, like all of those. And you put that together, and honestly, like what you're talking about, like storytelling starts with editing, honestly.
It starts with what?
Editing.
Yeah.
Because we can have the same footage, we can have the same story, but if we cut that up into different ways, it communicates something different to the end user, right? So to your point, like when I get drafts from people here, like I could tell probably 20 different stories, right? But we're trying to choose the story of some of the universal stories that people respond to. You know, we choose content themes here in Bloom each edition to kind of help our subject matter experts kind of focus on what they write on, but also to make sure that when a reader picks it up, that they kind of want to read from cover to cover because there's a continuing thread through the content.
To make it cohesive.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. So like this at last edition, we got a little heady with some scientific terms, but not to scare people away, but to oversimplify, we talked about dysbiosis and symbiosis. So like a disease state or a healthy state, things that are working. So we can translate that in metaphorical ways and talk about the plant. We can talk about health and wellness in general, which is really how we're framing ourselves as a print publication. And we've talked about sleep and growth in our last edition. We talked about cancer and love. We weren't shy. That was just our issue 2. And I was like, let's go there. Let's go to the C word, because that's why a lot of folks are facing the plant as a solution, right?
Yeah.
And from a legal standpoint and shifting the tide, that's what changed a lot of hearts and minds too, when people realized that there was a lot of relief from turning to the plant, especially during chemotherapy treatment. So,
Wow. And what's the most surprising thing you've learned about cannabis since being the editor-in-chief of Bloom?
Well, before that, I wanted to become a little bit of a subject matter expert myself, so I decided to become a certified ganjier, because I'm like, there's no way that I should be sitting in a seat, whether I'm an advisor to a company or anything else, if I don't know enough about the plant, about the history, the politics, the sociology, the cultural impact, the genetics, the health benefits, and some of the health dangers, right, too, because we have a country that runs on pharmaceuticals, so there are some guidance that we need to follow, right? I would just say probably my biggest aha moment was how little it's talked about in terms of legacy in the black market and what they contribute and what they still contribute quietly and silently, and how we maybe kind of merge the unregulated and regulated space together a little bit. I think my opportunity there is to start to invite people into these covers here and tell their stories, especially if they're trying to make a transition into the regulated space.
Right.
And to shift some hearts and minds around that too, because criminal label isn't a universal truth forever, right?
And you've talked to a lot of legacy growers, people who
yeah.
have been in the black market for years.
Yeah.
Is there like a common, people who have had longevity in the industry, is there a common theme that you've recognized among all of them?
I think there's some trepidation and some shyness, about those that want to transition here and actually how they present themselves and how they integrate into some of these modern structures. A lot of us that are coming here professionally from other sectors, we're like, oh, this should be built, this should be built. Oh, like, why isn't this here? A lot of legacy folks, they have their entire systems built. They're very effective, they're very efficient, they're very low cost. Like, I think that there's a lot of learning that can go both ways here, Instead of forcing one community to snap into the grid of another,
Right.
we have an opportunity space here to work together. So, like, the more conversations that we can have dovetailed, coming up with solutions that actually help grow this whole space for new consumers, like, that's what I'm excited about participating in.
Yeah. I mean, the common goal is to just get more people to use and experience the benefits, right? And
Yeah.
I think we should
Yeah.
all be working together to reach that common goal instead of being competitive or gatekeeping. I don't think any industry should. I think gatekeeping is the worst thing that could happen to any industry, and it sucks to see it in cannabis sometimes, but I see it less in this industry than other industries.
Yeah.
I come from a reality TV background, and it was just nothing but shadiness and lying, and it's cool to be in an industry where, that does happen, but not as much as
I think
reality TV.
No, I think that there's this scarcity mindset, right? Like if we want to talk economics, like supply demand, like I think there is enough food here for everyone to eat. We just kind of have to nourish the earth first, so enough can grow.
Yes.
And that's sort of like contributing to the base of the build, right? Is where I see this right now.
Right.
Yeah, like this is a great moment in history. This really is. It's not easy for a lot of us that are startups. So like we definitely are looking for support, advertising and sponsors that want to contribute to this conversation of cannabis being like one excellent tool and choice in your whole toolbox of health and wellness things that you can do at a fairly low cost with regularity with like very low impact to your body, negative wise, right? I think this conversation around harm reduction really needs to get elevated too in this industry. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we have a lot of folks, especially when I think about my veteran population or BIPOCs and pharmaceuticals and opioids specifically, prescribed for solutions, especially after folks get out of service, like, let's get them here.
Yeah.
Let's help get their worlds right-sided,
My bad. Yes, please. Yeah.
I think it would be really cool to ask, sort of tee it up. Can you kind of walk us through the vision?
Oh, yeah.
Because I would
Absolutely.
love to know, like you talked a little bit about the thread.
Yeah.
But I'd love for people to know, like, if I think of a copy online, what am I going to find?
Okay.
Yeah. I'll ask that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. So yeah, if I do pick up can you like walk us through like what an average? Let me hit that again. Can you walk us through like what an average magazine looks like? Like
Absolutely.
I'd love to even see it right now.
Yeah. Well, here I'm holding, this is our first year, excuse me, in print. And, the curation aspect, I kind of consider myself part editor, but part like art gallery curator or conductor of an orchestra, right? Like I have a lot of beautiful instruments and a lot of like bright minds and intelligent folks that I'm trying to put in between these covers, plant scientists, clinicians, ganjiers, shop owners and business owners, people who have launched brands, right? We've divided our pillars of content into listening, learning, and living sections, so it's really digestible and attainable for people. So the front third of the magazine is all going to be storytelling. So that's a lot of folks, from our tribal nations here in Minnesota launching verticals to some of our SCA social equity applicants launching their businesses. Definitely profiles on my fellow female founders because there's not many of us here sitting in CEO seats. And then we move into the learning section. So that is like very dense information generally about the plant as medicine primarily, how to use it. We had a great, like our first edition had a great, how to dose cannabis. Like we went there with instructions, and a lot of people shy away from that because it's medical advice. Well, the benefit that I have is that I'm including medical professionals into my magazine, so like they have the credentials to back that. And obviously, I have to put in my boilerplate, like go talk to your doctor. Obviously, like we don't know your specific medical condition, but like this is great introductory information.
Right.
And then we move into the living section. So the other things, like let's talk about cannabis and travel. Let's talk about like cannabis and lifestyle stuff. Let's talk about cannabis and cooking. So we'll always have, like a typical lifestyle magazine, we always end with a recipe on how to use cannabis. Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sold, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
I know you're based in Illinois.
Yeah.
But this goes out in Minnesota.
Yep, the print edition, this home base is Minnesota. This is our community here. Yep. So You'll see us 4 times a year out and about town. And yeah, you can find us at thenorthbloom.com.
Nice. And the last question I have for you is, how optimistic are you about the future of cannabis in Minnesota, or just this industry as a whole, in like the next 5 to 10 years?
I'm super optimistic. This is the beginning of the bubble blowing up. The hot air balloon is about to rise here, So I think it's hard for those that are building in this space to have that bird's eye view and keeping their eyes on the horizon, but it's going to grow. It's going to be beautiful. And the beautiful thing that Minnesota has done from a statute level is that they've allowed folks to grow at home.
Yeah.
Like it's very accessible here. So if you want to learn how to do it economically and affordably, you can do it in your backyard or in containers on your patio if you're a renter, if you don't own your own property. But I'm very optimistic. This is a beautiful state, and this is a beautiful moment for things to grow and blow up.
I love it. Optimism. You can't lose when you're optimistic. There's a lot of pessimists out there, but a lot of frustrated people, but it's kind of a breath of fresh air to talk to an optimist, because like you said, this is a beautiful moment in history. So let's be grateful, and let's just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's not hard, but like we're resilient creatures, and honestly, the plant gives us a damn excellent lift on those hard days, right?
Yeah.
To like have a reset and try again tomorrow. So yeah,
Love it.
Yeah.
Angelique, thanks so much. And then where can people find Bloom? Do you guys have a website, social media? Where can they subscribe?
Yep, you can find us at thenorthbloomonline.com, and you can find us at The North Bloom on Instagram and Bloom Multimedia on Instagram. And you can find us all over the Twin Cities area. So we'll have a stockist list soon, but we just got into a grocery chain, London Byerly's. I'm going to give them a shout out on because that's pretty excellent. So, yeah.
Well, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
your success and for the success you're going to continue to have.
Thank you, friend. Appreciate
Of
it.
course, it was great.
Thank you.
Money Talks Podcast, watch it on all your devices. Woo!